We hope that you find this forum helpful in deciding who will receive your vote on April 14th. All the candidates for Council Districts 1, 2, and 4 were invited to participate. However, our invitation was declined by one of the candidates for District 2. Therefore, to be in compliance with IRS and FEC rules, we, the sponsors, are prohibited from including just one candidate for a particular office. However, Todd Ruckel, who currently represents District 2, has agreed to stay after the formal program, and he is willing to speak to anyone who would like to talk to him. The candidates for District 1 and 4 are at the table, and following their opening remarks, the candidates will answer your questions on the variety of issues that City Council will be considering in the next 2 years. The candidates will then have 2 minutes each for a closing statement. Also like to refer you to the guidelines on the back of your program. The candidates have already agreed to them and have drawn numbers to determine the order of speaking. We will be taking only written questions from the audience. Cards are still available from representatives of the League of Women Voters and AAUW if you haven't already received one. Our volunteers will collect the cards to review them for relevancy and bring them to the podium. We will try to cover all the topics on which we receive questions within our time constraints, but if your question isn't specifically asked, it may have been combined with another question. Please be concise and write clearly. If we can't read your questions, we can't ask them. In order for us to use as many questions as possible, please save your applause or other expressions of approval until the very end. There will be no back and forth between the members of the audience and the candidates, and any kind of demonstrations are really unacceptable. The League of Women Voters has arranged to have the forum video recorded by Creative Media Group. In accordance with the League policy, the entire unedited video will be available on the League website. The website is LWV-Delaware-Newcastle County. The website is on the front of the program, so you don't have to write it down. The candidates have agreed not to use any material from the video in campaign materials. We expect that you two in the audience will honor this request as well. No other video recording or photography is allowed except by the League or established media. I believe there's a reporter here from the Newark Post. Is that correct? Yes. And who else do we have? News Journal? Oh, okay. If there are any other representatives of the media, please see Emily White for permission to do any recording or photography. Now, as a matter of courtesy, please, all cell phones and other devices that have an on or off switch should be turned off. Thank you. The candidates are seated in the order in which they will answer the first question within their district, and then they will alternate responding first to each subsequent question. Separate drawings determine the district order and the order of introductory and closing statements. And again, please hold your applause till the end. With that, we begin with Margaret Haddon to give her introductory remarks.
Hi, I'm Councilwoman Marge Haddon. I've lived on Sunset Road in Newark since 1986 with my husband, Robert Newland, who is a Newark native. I have 4 stepchildren and 11 grandchildren. I've worked at the University of Delaware since 1974, and I've served on several committees during my employment. I also held an elected position for over 15 years as a liaison between non-exempt staff and UD administration. While at UD, I've taken many workshops on project management, communication, Six Sigma process improvement, and team building. I've served on the board of directors of the Newark Historical Society, and I'm a lifetime member of the BFW Post 7687 Ladies Auxiliary. Since I've been on council, I've taken courses from the UD's Institute for Public Administration and I've earned a Coastal Community Resilience Certificate from the National Domestic Preparedness Consortium. By the end of tonight's meeting, I hope you will see that I am your candidate of choice.
Thank you. And Mr. Ronald Walker.
Good evening. My name is Ron Walker. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the AAUW, as well as the Senior Center, for providing this opportunity this evening for the candidates to speak. I'm Ron Walker. I've lived on Kells Avenue for 40 years. I love my city and I love my neighborhood. I'm probably well known throughout my neighborhood for my insistence on protecting quality of life and quality of our neighborhood. To do that, over the years, I've served on the Old Newark Civic Association. I've served on the Town and Gown Committee of the city. I've served on the Downtown Newark Partnership. And most recently, I served on the steering committee of the Newark Residents Against the Power Plant. My interest has always been quality of life in the town that I love. My interest in running is to make sure that this quality of life is retained, and I will do everything if elected to continue to protect our neighborhoods and our quality of life in Newark. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the candidates for District 1. The first to give an introduction will be Mark Moorhead.
Good evening. My name is Mark Moorhead. I'm the councilman representing the people of District 1, but also all of the people of Newark. I am the second longest serving member of Newark City Council. I would like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this event, the League of Women Voters, the American Association of University Women, the Newark Senior Center, and Carol Walsh, our moderator. Also, thanks to each of you for taking this opportunity to get to know each of us better. The decision before you is this: do my values of public engagement, fiscal responsibility, improving the quality of life in our community, and making informed decisions based on sound data, do my values align with your expectations for your representative on City Council? During the next several hours, I will tell you what I believe, how I make decisions, and what values I hold. These make up the foundation of my best efforts and why I work so hard to represent you on City Council as we shape the future of this wonderful community of Newark that we call home. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker will be Mr. Joseph Charma.
Good evening. My name is Joe Charma, and I thank you for coming out tonight to hear this discussion. And I applaud you all for showing your interest in our city. I am a 42-year resident of the city and a 29-year resident of District 1. I am a registered professional engineer, a civil engineer, and a partner at Landmark Science and Engineering. But I will be retiring at the end of this year. For over 20 years, I have volunteered for a variety of causes that have positively affected the quality of life in the city of Newark. I am a member of the Downtown Partnership, and I have been the chair of the design committee for 16 years. I'm very proud to have been a contributing member to the city's Great American Main Street Award that was received by the city in 2011. I'm also very proud of having worked firsthand on the Main Street streetscape improvements downtown, which we all. As a business owner and a civil engineer, I will bring my experience needed to bring a variety of people together and interests, and I have the ability to solve complex problems. I have spent my career as a problem solver and a team leader, a professional service provider. As City Councilman for District 1, I will put all of these skills and years of experience together for the good of the citizens of Newark.
Thank you. The next part of the program is devoted to your questions. You may still pick up cards and send them in. Okay. Vicki, there's one in the back first. Save her a walk. I'll read the questions to the candidates. Again, we're going to start with District 4. That was by draw of numbers. And the first question will go to Mr. Walker. The questions should be answered in 1 minute, and each candidate may have, per request, a 30-second rebuttal. So the candidates will have to ask me if they wish to rebut one of the questions, and then that will be after all 4 candidates have had a chance to speak to the question. Okay? So 1 minute per question, please. It's a good starter. What experience will you bring to this position? Why do you think you are qualified to be on council? Goes first to Mr. Walker.
I must have asked to put this question in because it's a wonderful question. I'm interested in being on city council because I love this city, but most importantly, I think I bring 30 years of professional business management experience to this council. And I believe that's extremely valuable, especially at this time in the city's issues that we deal with financially and otherwise. I'm excited to be involved in helping to address the various issues related to the finances of this city, but most importantly, I'm interested in seeing many of the issues such as the issues that developed around the power plant with accessory use and with neighborhood definitions yet to be defined by this city council and this city. I'm very anxious to expedite these issues being handled and to work dedicatedly on the financial stability of this city as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The same question goes to Marge Haddon. What experience do you bring, and why do you think you are qualified?
Well, as the current incumbent, I have learned experience over the last 2 years. And as you've heard from my beginning speech, I'm also anxious to learn and to learn things to help make our community a better place to live and to protect our community. What qualifies me to be on council is my desire to help people in the community. I have helped a lot of people and a lot of families in my 2 years on council, and I think that more than qualifies me. Thank you.
Thank you. The same question will go first to Mr. Moorhead, District 1.
I am also the incumbent in District 1, so I've served 2 terms on City Council at this point. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the second longest serving member on council. I dearly love this city. I live here. I'm committed. I've been here 20 years with my wife. I bring a background that's based on facts and figures. I have a BS in physics as an education platform. I had 20 years of corporate experience, management experience. I bring that view to the city in that it's a government. So to bring corporate oversight is a change, it's an improvement. And I'll give you an example. We've instituted employee reviews of the city manager during my time. So the other thing I bring is I have a forward vision. And I look forward to how we plan for our future. We'll talk about that more.
Thank you. Mr. Charma, same question. Experience?
What experience do I bring? Again, I'm a registered professional engineer, and with 27 years of business experience, I am a partner in a firm, one of the premier firms in this state. We deal with a lot of issues that the city currently faces. We have an aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced. I bring that experience as a civil engineer. I understand those problems directly, and I can recommend solutions, and I can wade through a multitude of problems to address those. I also am a prior member of the Clean Water Council. I was appointed by Governor Markell in 2009, so I understand how to get funding to get some of these things done. Also, as a 20-year member or volunteer and 16-year member of the Downtown Partnership, I bring that experience with what we've done on Main Street, bringing different groups together to solve a multitude of problems. And we can take what we've learned through the Downtown Partnership and
Thank you. Thank you. You can finish a sentence. The next question will go first to Marge Haddon, and I'm going to interpret this as, what should we do to help you? The question is, how would your ideal constituent bring up concerns or provide suggestions to you as their council member and to City Council as a whole?
I'll drop the word ideal and say, how would my constituent bring an issue to my attention? You can call me, you can email me, you can meet with me the first Thursday of every month at Pat's Pizza at 5 o'clock. You can call me, you can wave to me on the street, I will stop and talk your ear off. But I'm very accessible for my constituents, ideal or not.
Thank you. That's what it said in the card. Mr. Walker.
Well, I certainly, if elected, will make myself available anytime to anyone. I'm retired, I have all day and nothing to do, so except when my wife has duties for me. So what I am saying is, I'm very accessible. It's one of the reasons I'm interested in this position is I have the time now that I'm no longer working, and I use email. I have a website set up. I intend to keep that website, and you can go on there if you just want to post a question, or if you want to give me a call, I'm in the phone book, and I love to talk. That's one of my favorite things, and communication, I promise, would not be a problem if I were a city councilman for the 4th District. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Charma.
I too, I have social media set up. I have a web page. I have email, my personal email. You can reach me currently at my office, email. You can call my home phone number. I will be accessible. I will come to your home to answer your questions, and you'll often see me walking or running around the neighborhood or downtown. You can stop me on the street, and I'd be happy to talk about anything that's on your mind. Matter of fact, as I've been out campaigning, I've been asking constituents, what's been on your mind? And I've been hearing some interesting things, which we'll probably go into as we move forward a little later. But I am very accessible.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead.
Thank you. The phone number on the city's website for me is this phone here. I'm also in the phone book. You can call me at home. The email address on the city's website is my email. I have a website for the campaign. I have Facebook. People stop me on the street. People stop me in the grocery store, and we talk. My ideal constituent would be involved, would have possibly complaints, possibly comments, possibly ideas on how we can improve things. Most certainly would have an opinion about upcoming bills, ordinances, policies that we are considering. I want to gather the public's input. That is important. We are your government. Your government. It's not up to us. We're here to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Walker. And the question is, what is the most important issue facing Newark today? And what do you feel are your strengths to address this issue?
Well, I very strongly feel that we have infrastructure issues in this city that we need to move on. We have issues around stormwater. We have issues around our sewer system in general. We have water systems that are getting old. And we put off going to work on them. We just put it off. We study, we hesitate, we study. We're long past due to do something and to get this taken care of. Talking will not solve these old infrastructure issues. Getting out the backhoe and digging is what we have to do. And if it's going to cost money, we need to address how we're going to pay for it, but folks, we have no choice. But putting it off and delaying it is not solving the problems. And as I mentioned earlier, I continue to feel that the city needs to look at its finances and spend the money on things that need doing now, and that doesn't include a parking building.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
Thanks, Ron.
The most important issues facing the city today.
It's almost a it's sort of an emotional question for me. We do have infrastructure problems, and we have some land, we have some large tracts of land that are being looked at to be developed, in particular the Star Campus. But for me, the kind of person that I am, the most important issue that's facing Newark today is to help the community to have faith in their government again. A lot of damage was done to the community because of because groups weren't being forthcoming as far as the businesses, and my strengths are I'm very much a people person, and I care about this town, and I want it to be fixed. I want people to trust me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
Thank you. I believe the most important issue, particularly for District 1, is flooding. And this is a stormwater issue as well as a issue of houses were built where we wouldn't build them now. So what was legal is no longer legal, and it's not very wise necessarily. This is an issue that I have been speaking to since I came on council, and there has not been the will. Council is a majority rule situation, and it's particularly a District 1 issue. If you look at how the city used to flood, how the city's flooding now, Main Street also floods during a heavy storm event. So this issue is starting to get more widespread support. I bring to it, again, as I mentioned earlier, a look to the future. How are we going to address this issue? Where do we want to be in our future? How are we going to plan to get there? What is the community willing to do? The decisions that we need to make, the hard decisions that we need to make, and how are we going to do this to get to the future we want?
Thank you. Mr. Charma?
I agree with Mr. Walker and Mr. Moorhead on the two issues that are very important in this city at this point. And again, infrastructure and both stormwater management and storm drainage. As a civil engineer, I understand those issues very, very clearly. I have the training to deal with those issues. I have the ability to seek out funding to solve some of those problems, and I will work very hard to get those things done. I saw firsthand some of the flooding, as you all have on Main Street. It's not good when businesses get flooded, so it's not good when homes get flooded. So I will work very hard to weed through the technical jargon and the funding issues to solve those problems.
Thank you. I'm sorry, rebuttal? Yes.
One of my concerns when we talk about mending our community, bringing our people back together, our neighbors, and I agree we need to do that, but I'm very critical of the current council for failure to address the issue of what is a neighborhood and what is accessory use. I've waited a year for this council to handle that. So perhaps they care about our community, but they fail to act. We're long past due for these issues to be addressed.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. 30 seconds.
I attended a planning meeting where the definition of neighborhood and accessory was discussed, and it was held recently, and there were just a couple of people who attended, but I went because I cared. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Chair. Yes, 30 seconds, Mr. Moorhead.
If you all Google my name, there'll come up a YouTube video. It's dated, I believe, March 27th of 2014. During that video, what you can see is I asked council, and council directed city staff the administration to bring forward a new definition of neighborhood, a new definition of accessory use, and to work on the noise ordinance. Because our current noise ordinance is 52 decibels at nighttime, which is far too loud. And that work is being done, but it takes a long time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Charmer, did you wish to rebut? Okay, thank you. The previous 3 questions have started with District 4. The next 3 will start with District 1. And we will start with Mr. Charma. How do you propose funding Newark's repairs to the city's stormwater management?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, having served for 3 years on the State Clean Water Council, as I've said before, having served for 3 years on the State Clean Water Council, I understand the mechanism of how to go after that funding. We also have to keep in mind, once we fix the problem, it's been the years of neglect that got us there. What we need to do is put maintenance programs and things in place to not go back there. Let's not let history repeat itself. Let's learn from our mistakes and move forward. And again, I think, and I use my qualifications as a civil engineer, I think I can look at solutions that make sense and work with the engineers that the city hires to solve these problems.
Okay. Mr. Moorhead?
I would propose building a budget from the bottom up, and this is pretty straightforward. We know a certain number of miles of, a mile of road, for example, costs a certain amount to repair, to build. And so given how many miles we have, you could put that in the budget of what you'd have to repair every year, given that how long it's supposed to last. You could do the same with stormwater, you could do the same with water, you could do the same with sewer systems. If we built from the bottom up, I tend to agree with Mr. Walker, there would be decisions we'd have to make, there would be things that we wouldn't be paying for. There are many of those that are currently in our budget now. Council receives the budget from the administration. They set their priorities, and council adjusts those as it sees fit. This was the first year that I led the charge actually to adjust the CIP, the capital improvement program. And we actually, line item by line item, went through some of the items and knocked them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question. How do you propose funding Newark's repairs to the city's stormwater management? It would go first to Ms. Haddon. And be sure to speak into the mic.
How we, the city of Newark, funded the project would depend on whether or not the state of Delaware brought to the table their proposed stormwater fee. If the state brought the monies forward, then that we as a city, if we wanted to institute our own fee and work it out that way, should ask for a waiver from the state, because I'm not in favor of the residents paying twice for something like that, or get some type of credit. But I used to think that we needed to charge a fee, but I've sort of changed from that, and I'm more interested in seeing what funding opportunities there are out there first that will help us to remediate this before we decide whether a fee is necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
I live on Kells Avenue. I'm very fortunate. I'm up on a high level, but across the street, that area floods all back through there. It has for years. It's an ongoing, long-term problem. The huge flood that takes place at Main Street and Haynes is a huge problem. The one over in Devon. How long do we talk about it before we do something? You know, people are extremely inconvenienced, properties are damaged, and we keep talking about maybe we can find the money from somewhere. We need to fix the problem. We seem to be able to afford to put in new water meters. We can put in new electric meters. We can put new parking meters in. We can spend millions of dollars that way. But we can't fix the problems that cause extreme inconvenience and property damage to our residents. I think we need to move forward.
Thank you. The next question will again start with District 1, and it will start with Mr. Moorhead. What do you think about the budget that was proposed by Council in December 2014? What are your thoughts on the city? What are your thoughts on the city budget as it moves forward, and are you satisfied with the current budget?
I think I commented earlier that I believe the budget should be done a different way. It should be done, I profoundly believe, fundamentally believe, from the bottom up. I believe we should maintain our infrastructure. I believe we should address the problems that we have before we address the luxuries. And I've got to agree with Mr. Walker. There are some luxuries that we have spent money on. They may make sense, but they're not our major problems. So I try to raise these issues with council. I win some victories on that. You don't win them all, and it is a best of 7 vote. So that's the way it is. Going forward, I will continue to push for the budget to be bottom up. Continue to push for infrastructure, continue to push for quality of life issues, and that effort has proven to work eventually.
Thank you. Mr. Terma?
The budget that was proposed and adopted was around $45 million. The lion's share of that budget is about, it goes to the operating staff, the people that work at the city. I think there's opportunity for perhaps, and there has been already cases that where consolidation in the departments has occurred. We have the planning department, or planning and land use, that has combined with, brought the old building department in as now code enforcement. So I think there's opportunities for that consolidation to save some money in the budget. Also, one thing I noticed is that there's about a $2.7 million debt. Our debt service is around 5%, which is great. Normally, for a city our size, a 10% debt service is acceptable. So I think we're headed in the right direction with the budget.
Thank you. Same question. It will go first to Mr. Walker, the budget process and the proposed budget in 2014.
I looked very carefully at the 2015 budget. Matter of fact, I was looking at it today, and I'm rather shocked, to be frank with you. What shocks me is our budget was up 5% this year. It's been basically 5% for the past 5 years. The budget is in the past 5 years it has increased 25%. In a very low inflationary period, I think that's a lot. But what really disturbs me is when I look at how we're able to operate. We reach over to the utility fund. You know, that's our electric. Normal municipal utilities take about 5% of the net out each year to, as shall we say, profit. We took 20% this year. We took 4 times what is normal. Can we continue to do that? I have very great concerns. I think we're living beyond our means. That's what I believe. We're living beyond our means. And it concerns me, and it should concern all of us.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
Thank you, ma'am. This year, the budget and the CIP combined, I think, was about 311 pages. We on council went through it very, very thoroughly, I felt. Are there things in there that some people might not want to see that are large items? Yes, but those things usually come back to council for more conversation and actual action later. and they may not go through. My only request would be that council have more time to review the budget and maybe do it at a different time of the year, look at how things are set up, so that we can get things done in a quicker fashion. And I do agree with many of the statements that have already said before me.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead has asked for a rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Council has put in place to start the budget process earlier, so Councilperson Haddon is exactly right. We need more time. You just can't get it done. It is a very long document. Here's the thing. We've taken money from our long-term savings. We're borrowing more. Our income is not going up as fast as we would like, and we're spending more. So it is a situation that is not sustainable going forward. We have to make decisions differently going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Charma?
Yes, again, as a business owner, I'm very familiar with budgets and making cuts where they're necessary, and I agree somewhat with Mr. Walker. There are items in the budget that could be cut or consolidated. I think you can't live beyond your means. I do this. I just did my budget with my firm. We cut out some things that were not essential to operate immediately, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget process? Okay, thank you. The next question is also about finances, and it will begin with District 1, Mr. Charma. What recommendation do you have to reduce Newark's reliance on electric usage for city financing?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, we have an opportunity before us, and I think economic development is the answer. We need to investigate other ways of providing funding for the city. One of the ways that I think we can do is in our downtown area, we do not have a lot of arts and entertainment. There's no places for adults to go and enjoy adult music venues. I think there's room for that. And along with that, if we establish there's new business opportunities. They'll create new jobs. They'll bring more people from outside the city to come to Newark. We need to create our city as a destination and bring those jobs here. Those art jobs, and I think those art-related jobs. And I think that's something that, as a councilman, I will focus on generating that opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
Thank you. I understand Mr. Charma's perspective about creating more jobs, and it's great. We should create more jobs. We should plan to be a destination. The thing is, that won't change the city's budget. That'll change individuals' budget, but that won't put money in the city's coffers. A budget has two sides, as we all know that have budgets in our own homes and in our own businesses. There's an income side, there's a spending side. And while we continually look to put departments together, a year or so ago, we put together the water and sewer departments with Public Works and got that efficiency. This administration does a great job looking for efficiencies. But the thing is, we also have to cut. We also have to spend less. It's just that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question. What recommendation do you have to reduce Newark's reliance on electric usage for city financing? Ms. Haddon.
Well, the more things we do to become energy efficient, the more we're shooting ourselves in the feet financially, because we're cutting into our own income option. So, what do? It's always a challenge for a municipality to find money. We are not the only municipality that struggles to find new and creative ways to finance our city. My only recommendation would be, it should be a constant challenge to city staff and council to recognize the opportunities when they come up for us to make a creative funding situation, positive income for Newark. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
It's a very good question and a very serious issue, as I mentioned earlier. We're too dependent on our electric. We can't continue this way. We do have to find other sources of revenue. I don't have the answer, as I said here, but I do believe we've got to put together a task force or something and seriously look at what we're going to do. Folks, we have only one other choice at the moment: raise property taxes. And we really don't like that idea, do we? But we don't. But you know that our property taxes are low, and they're low because we take our money from the electric, it's commonly called enterprise here, and from the water enterprise, and from the parking enterprise. So we're pulling money from those three sources. Now we need to find another one, and I'm not sure what it is, but maybe through economic development efforts we can find a golden knight that will come here and plant themselves here like Chrysler did, but not in town, please, not this close. And you know, where we can create jobs and a lot of additional tax and da-da-da. But we have to really look at this, and we need to study it, and we need to do it now.
Thank you. The next question will begin with District 4 and with Mr. Walker. Development pressure costs dearly in public infrastructure demand. Do you support impact fees for construction projects that cause increased capacity demand on water, electric, roads, and sewer?
Wow. And I'm first. I'm one lucky guy. Well, you know, impact fees, well, they have their good and bad points. You know, when you do that, you, of course, you get money now, but you also discourage development. It's a slippery slope to go down. And I have reservations about suggesting we do something like that. But I do understand that it is a revenue issue, and it is an infrastructure cost and all of that. But let me say that I don't get too excited with impact fees. I'd rather not go that route.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
To an extent, I do support reasonable fees. A good example of an area of town where a reasonable fee should be put forth is Academy Street, where the University of Delaware has had a lot of construction. Those contractors have torn that road up. And the responsibility, in my opinion, for repairing that road should not rest solely upon the community or the city of Newark. I really think that the developer, it should be an expected part of the project that at the end of the project, they should repair the roads. Or if they burden the septic system, they should contribute to making it better because they're getting something out of it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead, impact fees.
We currently do have some effective impact fees. And when I say that, what we do is we share the responsibility with the developer in some situations. One of the biggest situations is UD. When they add a dorm, quite often they are responsible for upgrading the sewer system nearby. Another situation is if the water supply, for example, down to Suburban Plaza can't support the development down there, the developer has a choice. He either puts in water tanks so he has his fire suppression system, the rate of water delivery that he needs, or he can upgrade the water coming to the area. So we have something like that in some situations now, and I do support an impact fee to a degree. It has to be reasonable, but if you're bringing the impact, I think it's fair that, and if you're profiting from the impact, you should you should help with the costs.
Thank you. Mr. Charma?
Yes, impact fees. Again, it is a slippery slope. I agree with Mr. Walker. And I also agree that I think reasonable impact fees are the cost of doing business. Most developers understand this because there's other areas in the county, in Middletown, other municipalities, that impact fees are a regular way of doing business. Now, keep in mind that if those fees get too high, they will negatively impact your economic development. So again, reasonable impact fees are, I think, that is something that needs to be looked at very carefully, and we need to think about that. So I could support reasonable impact fees.
Thank you. Okay, the next question goes first to District 1 and first to Mr. Charma. What land uses would you support for the University of Delaware dormitory site on Hillside Road? Planning to demolish that site?
We have before us an excellent opportunity to recapture land that was been off the tax rolls forever. How that's developed, I think, really needs to be thought about carefully. We need to think about the impact on the neighborhood, the adjacent neighborhood, and we need to think about what's the best, highest use for the city. What makes sense there? Is it a residential project? Is it a quality condominium community, owner-occupied community? Those things are things that council, along with the citizens, should investigate very carefully. Perhaps if the city were to purchase that property, maybe it needs to, maybe we need to have a referendum to get community input. Certainly workshops at minimum to discuss it.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
In that location, I support low impact, typically residential development. We expect there to be development. When I say low impact, I'm thinking something much like senior housing or assisted living, where you won't have many cars and there will be extremely low impact to the adjacent neighborhoods. Right now, it's zoned UD, which is any use that the university wants. It could be dorms, it could be laboratories, it could be classrooms. So the question is, what will it be? And I think low impact is the way to go. I've been talking to many of the neighbors there, and everybody wants to know what's going to happen to that area. It'd be nice for it to be a park. There is no money right now for additional parks. At this point, there's no will to do that. So most likely it will go to a developer of some sort. So our opportunity is to keep it what we want.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
This question is very difficult for me because I very much would like to have an opinion on it, but I think I need to excuse myself because there was a statement in the paper about us hiring legal to explore possibility for stormwater retention or public use. So I cannot answer this question.
Okay.
This is the dorms.
Yeah, the dorms on Hillside. Are you planned for the dorms?
Rodney Dickinson?
Pardon? The question just says Hillside, but I assume that's the, yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Mr. Walker?
if we only had money, we could buy that. We could also go over and negotiate and get the country club and protect that. We just don't have money. That's our problem. We need to be in someone's will. We really need to be in we need to be in Warren Buffett's will. I don't know how the city, well, there's no question. There are issues there, and if I lived next to it, I'd be very concerned about what's going to happen. And I'm concerned anyhow. Our city This is an opportunity for us to protect that area, but it costs a lot of money. And this is an item that, I think could wind up at referendum. Ask the citizens of Newark, do you want to protect that land? And if you do, then allow us to go in debt and buy it. Or better yet, the university, in my opinion, ought to have a fire sale and give it to us. I think they could afford to do that. They have lots of money. We don't have much. We give them a lot. I don't think they give us back nearly as much as they take. So I would hope that we can do something, but we're not going to be able, the city's not going to buy it unless we, like I said, come into someone's will where we can make something happen through a deal with the university.
Okay. Thank you. The next question will start again with District 4, and Mr. Walker gets first at that. Are you familiar with the student rental ordinance, which prohibits rental units from being within a certain district from other rental units? The idea is to retain owner-occupied homes in certain neighborhoods. And do you favor this ordinance or not?
Am I? Am I ever? I've dealt with this for 30 years. And I can tell you I'm really familiar with it, and it doesn't work. I mean, I had a neighbor recently who was 40 years my neighbor who passed away. The kids immediately sold the house to a rental, and they moved 5 kids in. Eventually, 8 months later, we finally got them out. But it just doesn't work because everyone knows that how to get around it. They get around it, and the result is that I think that we need to look again at the rules and try to figure out how we can make them better. And certainly we need to enforce them, which I don't feel the city does a good job of at all.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
Yes, I am familiar with the student rental ordinance. It's a very complicated ordinance. You can have a student home, which can have, I believe, up to 5 students, no adult. You can have an owner-occupied rental, where an owner can take in 2 people without a permit, 3 people with a permit. Do I think, it is extremely complicated, and it's very difficult because I was involved with the issue that Mr. Walker is referring to. It's a lengthy process to show that there is abuse, and it has to be conducted very thoroughly so that the city doesn't get sued, and completely. And he's right. People know how to get around it. Do I think there are changes that need to be made? Yes. Identifying those changes is a challenge, but I have been looking at some things in my time on council, and I'm not done yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
I have 1 rental property. I am extremely familiar with this ordinance. My property is located on Lincoln Drive, which is 60 to 70% of rentals and approximately 30 to 40% of homeowner occupants. This is a holdover from when the students were coming out into the neighborhoods. And what we're seeing now is that as more development is happening downtown, the students are moving to those developments. So they're moving to some degree out of the neighborhoods and moving out of the formerly student rental neighborhoods, if you will. So the question becomes, what are we planning for who is moving into those places? Because they still will remain rentals. The city has an owner occupancy program where we promote owner occupancy, and that's a good thing. We need to talk about how we're funding that further.
Mr. Charma?
Owner occupancy, it's very, very near and dear to me. Under the prior planning director, I did have the opportunity to assist in creating the new Center Village overlay, primarily for Center Street to preserve that neighborhood. I think that was an excellent opportunity. The ordinance was a good start. Unfortunately, no one has created any owner-occupied housing in that area. But one thing that I do know from as I've been out campaigning, I talked to an individual yesterday in my district, and one of the things that happens in our district, in District 1, there are some owner-occupied homes that are not being kept up. The city either needs to enforce those regulations and keep those property up. They need to get out there and get after those property owners. And I also think that the pressure for or apartments, the proliferation of apartments downtown has drawn students and others from the neighborhood. So that has been a good thing. And again, but I think the city really needs to enforce the current laws and regulations that are on the books.
Okay, thank you. The next question also goes to District 1 first, and it will start with Mr. Charma. A developer hopes to erect a 60-foot high stretch of buildings on Center Street off Main Street. Are you? What it says. If elected, what would your position be on this?
You know, I think that area, again, being designated as a owner-occupied new center village overlay, that has already been established. I think the city and council needs to take a long, hard look at that. Again, since no one has stepped up to the plate to create an owner-occupied residential building there, I think there's an opportunity here again, we just talked about how to create opportunities of finding more money to replace the, using the electric fund. Perhaps this is an opportunity. I think with the proper, it's one block off of Main Street. It really is the central business district. Most of the homes are rental homes in that area. There's a few owner-occupied homes in the area. So, I think it's a tough question. We're going to have to look, if I'm elected, I'm going to have to look long and hard at how that works and whether we really want to set that precedent.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
Thank you. This is a very dangerous question to answer because as a sitting member of council, if you state a preference ahead of time to a specific project, the courts in Delaware have shown that they will overturn the decision by council if you continue to vote on that. So I would say a hypothetical development on Center Street, if it is truly owner-occupied, I would draw a distinction in my mind between if it's owner-occupied or if it's student rentals. If it's student rentals, I don't believe it belongs there because the Center Street overlay is meant to encourage owner occupancy. If it's owner occupied, I would have to evaluate the specific project as it gets presented at the time in the public hearing to be able to make a decision at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
Once again, I know this is going to come before me, so I also am going to have to recuse myself from a statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Well, I very much agree with what Mr. Moorhead said. You know, it's something you'd have to look long and hard at, and I just don't. I do agree. If it was owner-occupied, there would be, I think, there would be certainly reason to give it consideration, but there'd be a lot of discussion and so forth before I would commit.
Okay. Thank you. All right, the next question will go to start with District 4. And it would start with Ms. Haddon. Are you interested in preserving the Newark Country Club? If so, how would you do that? And if not, why?
I'm thinking. I think it's a beautiful piece of property, and I think I should recuse myself.
Mr. Walker? Could you repeat the question again? Sure. Are you interested in preserving the Newark Country Club? If so, how would you do that? And if not, why?
Well, I have not a moment's hesitation in saying that I'd like to see it preserved. I mean, I love to ride by it. I love to look over it. I'm not a golfer, but it tempts me to want to take up golfing every time I go by. It would be I mean, I cringed when it looked like it was going to be traded off and developed. And I'm so glad that nothing's happened. And once again, folks, like I said, I wish we had a rich uncle that would die and give us the money to buy it. I know that's what we need to do, but the problem is, where do we find the money? So I just hope and pray that things continue to be hung up and it continues to function as it is. That's what we have to hope, because, you know, we just need money to do it. But do I think it should be developed? No, no, no.
Thank you. Mr. Charma?
Newark Country Club, very close to home for me. Do I think it should be preserved as a country club? I do believe that. I think it is a diamond in our community. We have a great recreational area there. We have a golf course, and it's a beautiful golf course if you haven't been on it. I think that there's opportunity here. You got to remember the country club is a private entity, and they operate under a budget just like we were discussing earlier about the city budget. So they got to make the numbers work. So they have taken steps opening up. They have taken steps to open up memberships, to social memberships, and a variety of memberships. Matter of fact, my wife and I just joined because I believe if you want to preserve something, you need to have some skin in the game. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I think that there's perhaps an opportunity for a public-private partnership to create, an entity to preserve it. And I do think it should remain the country club.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
This is a very difficult question, once again, from the legal standpoint. Councilperson Haddon was 100% correct on that. The country club has been zoned for 3 to 4 houses per acre for as long as I've lived in the city. Here's the issue. They have aging infrastructure of their own, and they don't have a driving range. So as a golf course, they'd like to have a driving range. They'd like to offer that opportunity to their members. I'm going to harken back to one of the very few times where I had to recuse myself, and it was about the Newark Co-op coming to council. Both the mayor and I are members of the co-op, and we had to recuse ourselves from that vote on ethical reasons. So I think as a member of the country club, you wouldn't be able to vote if you were elected to council. That would be a problem. That would be a problem for District 1. You wouldn't have representation in that vote. So these are issues of law. They aren't issues of how we feel. Our hands are tied by the law, the state law sometimes, against our will and against our personal feelings in some cases. So I would just ask everybody to be patient with that when Councilperson Haddon and I aren't answering the questions sometimes.
Thank you. The next question is total change of subject and topic here. And I'll start with Mr. Moorhead. Do you have a recommendation on how to handle the homeless people who spend days and nights in and around Main Street?
I know our church is part of Code Purple. I know certainly the mayor is involved in many nonprofit organizations that take this to heart. I am not personally involved in those. I spend my time working on other community building projects. So this has not been something that I've spent my time on. It's not my specialty. Do I have ideas? Yes. Is it a problem that's been with us forever? Yes. On the face of the earth? Yes. Do we look after our neighbors? Yes. Is it government's issue? Yes. Is it society's issue? Yes. So it's a long-term problem, and it's a problem for each of us. And I will try to do what I can, but I'm not on the front lines at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Charma,
Would you repeat the question, please?
do you have a recommendation for handling the homeless people who spent days and nights in and around Main Street?
Again, I am not directly involved with the situation here, but we do have the Methodist Church, Newark United Methodist Church, does provide meals and housing for some of the homeless people. And we have, as Mr. Moorhead mentioned, Code Purple that offers aid on these terrible, terrible cold nights that we've been having this winter. The Newark Area Welfare Foundation does an excellent job of providing meals for people in the community. And I think we do have a social responsibility to our brothers and sisters who have been less fortunate than us. We need to look out for them and try to do the best we can. Is there room to improve? Absolutely. I think this is something, as a councilman, I would investigate and look for perhaps additional shelter areas on those cold nights to create a safe, warm, safe haven for people.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
It's a very serious problem. I don't think it's as readily noticed here in Newark as it is in some towns and cities. I commend the mayor for all that she does to address that issue through organizations that she's very active with. My wife and I, a month or so ago, attended an event at the Unitarian Church. It was a fundraiser to help. I'm a very compassionate person, and it's very bothersome to me. And certainly if I was on council and, if there was anything we could do within financial reason to help, I would support that. I care about my fellow man, and I do care about the homeless, and I feel for them, and it's very concerning.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
I think that there are a number of reasons that put people in the position of being homeless. Some are returning military men, and shame on our government for not doing more to help them. I really like our veterans, and it's sad for me to see this. I have talked to the mayor, who does do a lot with the homeless, and we've talked about ideas, things that we can do, and I think some of those things are being done now. The homeless are being documented, and when they go Code Purple, there are a whole bunch of people that hit the streets. But one of the things that we talked about was putting a brochure together that you can give them to tell them what services are there for them, something they can take that tells them where to go to get a meal, where to go to get job help, tells them about the Newark Welfare Committee, tells them about the resources that the city has that can help them. And that's the kind of outreach I think we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question has to do with open and transparency in government. Assuming that there is a certain amount of support for open and transparency in government, what would you do to increase the transparency of the Newark City government? And that goes to District 4 and Ms. Haddon.
In the 2 years that I've been on council, I have seen the public face of the city change so much. And it's because of the community and the community's right to know. And I appreciate that. Regarding, I think the City of Newark is very transparent, and so does the League of Women Voters, because the City of Newark won an award for open government in 2011. It was quite an honor, and it was mentioned one time. Now it's been mentioned twice. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
I don't think there's anything more important than transparency and open government. And I've had concerns about that ever since, especially since the power plant issue arose. It seemed to me, and it still seems to me, that you vote for council people. You elect your council person and they go to council. But there were things that went on with the power plant project that the council people just didn't seem to know anything about. I think it was a closed situation, I have to tell you. I mean, you know, I would ask council people, what about this? And well, they didn't know how it came to be. How did we come to do what we did or not do what we did? Well, I don't know. Well, you know what? Council people need to know. It needs to start at council and work its way through to the city manager and so forth, not the other way around. So I remain with concern about whether or not our council is going to take a more immediate first place involvement in things.
Thank you. Mr. Charma?
Open government and transparency, very, very important. It's important to protect everyone's constitutional rights. We have to do it. Right now, the city has a number of workshops, public hearings, planning commission hearings. There's a lot of opportunity for the public to interact with council, with the planning commission, with the city operating departments. Being involved requires some effort. So it does require, just clearly requires effort. If you want to know, you have to find out. I think the city does do a good job. They are transparent. And I agree with Mr. Walker. I think many things with the data center project were sketchy. There were multiple stories. You never really knew what the story was. But I think you have to keep three simple things in mind as a councilman. If I'm elected, I will do what's right, good, and honorable. That's ultimate. That's what you need to keep in mind. That's what the public needs to keep in mind. And we are elected officials.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
Thank you. This issue is near and dear to my heart. It's one of the basic values that I brought to council. Transparency is government. There is no other alternative in my mind. When we talk about the data center and we talk about folks that talk about the rift, you heal the rift through transparency. First off, you welcome the public in order to give everyone a voice. And then you have absolute transparency in order that everyone knows what's going on. And then lastly, you have the difficult conversations in which we may not always agree, but we're going to at least have the conversation so that we all know and that we have all talked about what is actually going on. The government, our government, is reasonably transparent, and we are continually striving to improve that. And I am at the forefront of that effort all the time.
Thank you. This is really a follow-up on the previous question. Mr. Moorhead, will you commit tonight to holding monthly public meetings with your constituents?
This is an idea that I love. Any council member can reserve the chambers if you want to hold a meeting there. I have recently started holding meetings on a small scale at Saxby's every Saturday morning. just to talk to my constituents. Here's the idea for the council chambers, is that you could get a lot of input. You could just show up and have maybe a topic of the month, or you could show up and have just an open conversation. And whoever wants to come can come. But yes, I will. I will absolutely commit to that. Thank you.
Mr. Charma?
I do think that monthly public meetings, they can be a good thing, but again, as a councilman, I would make myself accessible to meet with any group or any number of people to discuss any particular issue that was on their mind. It doesn't have to be in an official capacity as far as a regularly scheduled meeting, but if that's what the constituents of District 1 want, I could attend that. I would be willing to do that. But I think people reaching out with individual questions or comments, if I get 5 comments from the same, or on the same venue, I would certainly say, hey, maybe we need to have a meeting, and if there's 5 of you, there's probably 50 of you. So, let's have a meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, having regular meetings?
I love to talk. I would be happy to do that. I have not a moment's hesitation in saying I would be happy to have monthly meetings wherever my constituents would like to meet and talk. And I have time, as I told you. Thank you.
Ms. Haddon?
Yes, I would commit to that. I already do it, and it's wonderful. It's informal. Every once in a while, I ask an employee, someone from a department at the city, to come and share their expertise, explain what their job is. People seem to like that, and I buy a couple of pizzas, and everybody has a great time, and we share a lot of information. I'm not going to say that I'm swamped with people, which actually makes me feel good, because it makes me feel like I'm doing a good job reaching everybody. But there are people that come out on a regular basis, and they know I'll be there for them.
Thank you. I'm going to combine the next 2 questions. I'll read them both separately, but they're basically having to do with your attitude toward dealing with constituents with which you don't agree. How would you handle working with others in the city or your district that you disagree with on an issue? And the other question was, when residents in your district strongly express opposing views on an issue, what process do you use to determine how you will vote at council? A little more specific there. Starts with Ms. Haddon.
I'm going to repeat the question if you don't mind.
Okay.
So the question
There were
is,
2 questions, and I really was reading them both, but when residents in your district strongly express opposing views on an issue, what process do you use to determine how you will vote at council? And the other one was just, how do you handle dealing with people of different opinions and views?
since I've been on council, I have met people who feel very strongly about certain things, and they're quite comfortable expressing it. Sometimes, much to my dismay, because I'm not, when someone is aggressive to me, I tend to try to be nice back. So it's actually not a good situation for me, because I want to help them to understand where I am, and I understand they have their thing. But regardless, if somebody disagrees, if there's a contentious thing on and somebody's reached out and they have an opposite opinion of what they think I have, I do go on the internet, I do my homework, I do my research, I go to council, and I listen to the conversation that is in council chambers to see if other people are dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with. Sometimes I change my opinion in council chambers because somebody will say something that I haven't thought of before. But I think I do a pretty good job dealing with people that disagree with me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walker?
Well, Marge is a hugger, so she has a better shot at this. I'm not a hugger. But in reality, I like people, and there's going to be differences of opinion, and you have to hear them out, and you have to evaluate their position and that of the other person or yourself if it's different than that, and ultimately, perhaps you do suggest, why don't you bring that issue down to council in a public meeting at the public portion of the meeting and talk about it, and get more and more input to help us decide whether or not your position is one that can be supported by myself or by other members of the council. But differences of opinion are differences of opinion, and you will deal with them as best you can and respect people. That's the most important thing in the process.
Okay, Mr. Charma?
Well, this is something I have a lot of practice with because my wife and I usually disagree about everything. So we really do. She's a great sounding board because issues in the city, we constantly badger back and forth. But I understand that there's going to be people out there that disagree with perhaps my position or other positions or the position of the city on a particular topic. I think that what you have to do is you have to listen to them. You have to, don't talk, but listen to them. Find out what you're hearing and look at all the information. Research all the sources. Find out everything you can possibly find out about the topic and make your decision such that it benefits the city overall the best it can possibly be.
Thank you. Mr. Moorhead?
I have to agree with Mr. Charman. You can't expect to agree with someone all the time. Disagreement is just a natural thing. Folks have differences of opinions. And here's the thing about that. So sometimes it's a misunderstanding of education, of the actual facts. What is the situation? So at first you would talk about what the situation is as each of you see it. Then you say, okay, we all are making our decisions of value based on quality of life. And so somehow this is triggering a quality of life discussion for us. And how am I making those decisions? And how are you making those decisions? Is your quality of life judgment based on a job and mine based on something else? I don't know, zoning code or something. And we saw TDC, the data center, split neighbors over lot lines based on this. Quality of life versus the environment is one that comes to mind. Of quality of life by jobs versus the environment. You have to discuss with respect. And at the end, if you agree to disagree, but understand that you still respect each other and you'll still be acquaintances, still be working together as you go forward.
Thank you. The next question will go to District 1 and start with Mr. Moorhead. Again, I'm going to combine two questions. It has to do with your current job or affiliations that might create a conflict of interest in pursuing your position as a city council member. And do you have any, and how would you deal with it if you realized that there was a conflict of interest?
Sure. Thank you. I have very few conflicts. I work for myself. I'm a contractor. I work typically for the elderly in handicap access issues, sometimes maintenance and repairs of their homes. So very, very rarely do I have a situation where I had to recuse myself. I believe there have been 3 over the course of 4 years. One was when council recently voted on home-based businesses, low-impact home-based businesses. I decided, since I basically run my business from my cell phone, that was a situation that could be interpreted to affect me, and so I did recuse myself. Second was the situation that I already mentioned with the mayor, where we both recused ourselves because we were members of the Newark Co-op, as it was coming before council for a variance of some sort. I don't exactly remember, because I knew I was going to recuse myself. And the third, I had made a decision about a project that came back to council a second time. Because of my decision the first time, I believed that I had expressed a bias about the project, and so I recused myself about the project the second time because I believed I had expressed a bias. Other than that, I do not have any conflicts that I'm aware of, but if they come up, I would recuse myself in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Charma.
Well, conflict of interest, if you're involved in your community, it's pretty hard not to be really conflicted somewhere. It's pretty hard if you really think about it, if you start to drill down. But for me personally, I am retiring. I have represented many clients, many diverse clients before the city, before city council. I am retiring, so I won't have that conflict any longer. Also, as the chair of the Downtown Partnership Design Committee, also, many of the projects that I represent came before that committee. So I was very clear and transparent at the beginning of the meeting, when I called the meeting to order, I immediately notified everyone at the meeting that I have a conflict, I represent this client, and I turn the meeting over to the vice chair. And that's what I would do. I would make it clear that I have a conflict, and if that happens in council, I will make it clear I have a conflict, so everyone knows, and I will excuse myself.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, you would be next.
I have no job, I have no conflict of interest. I'm retired, and that's true. That greatly relieves that issue on my part. However, I do think that it's important if in any way you feel that you may be prejudiced, you need to step aside. And I would do that in a moment if I felt that, it would create that type of situation where I should do so. And I think that's an honorable thing to do, and I commend those that do that.
Ms. Haddon?
There's true conflict of interest, and then there's perceived conflict of interest. I work at the University of Delaware. I live in a university town. I'm a member of council. There may or may not be a time where I personally don't feel I have a conflict of interest because I think I'm a very open-minded and generally unbiased person. But if I think that the public perceives that there is one that exists, I would probably recuse myself on that. So I can tell you I don't feel that, and I haven't had to recuse myself, but at any time if I felt that I should, whether I believed that it truly existed or if it was just a perception for the public, I would recuse myself.
Thank you. We're getting out of time. I have a couple of questions left. I think that the candidates will probably be willing to answer these questions personally to you, but I want to ask one more before we do a wrap-up question. And this is real change of subject. What are your views on municipal bonds? Oh, where do we start? Starts with Ms. Haddon.
Invest. Blue chips are great. I think they're necessary. I think they're a good way to raise revenue. And I know people actually that have purchased some in the past. But I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Walker?
I own municipal bonds, and I highly recommend them. I buy Delaware GOs, and I would buy municipal bonds that Newark offers, and on rare occasion they do, as long as their interest rate is competitive and so forth. As far as the city raising money by floating municipal bonds, I think it's a great idea. Here again, the market interest rates determine what the city will have to pay. but I think it's perfectly, it's an attractive investment for people, especially people as they get older like myself. And I think that it's great that the city gives an opportunity through issuing of bonds, when they do, for the community to buy and support support the community's financial needs in the process of getting income. It's great.
Mr. Charma.
I'll reiterate Ms. Haddon's comment. Invest. I think it's great. Municipal bonds are great mechanisms to finance and fund a variety of community projects. I think that it also gives, if you invest in municipal bond, it shows your commitment to the community. You are doing what you think is right for your community. You're helping fund that, and it will allow the community to accomplish many, many things. And so I would encourage people to invest in municipal bonds. If the city of Newark has bonds out there, invest in them and support your city.
Mr. Moorhead.
Thank you. The city does have bonds out. Right now, there are bonds out on the reservoir that the city is currently paying on. So this is an active situation. It's reality. I don't know, they're out there. So I don't invest in them. I haven't invested in them. At this point in time, my investment program hasn't gone that direction. So I believe it's a good way to raise money. Typically comes to referendum for the public to vote whether or not they want to do this, whether or not they want to take on that debt. So you all get to decide, which I think is exactly 100% the way it should be. But it's a good financing way to get money up front. It's stable, and it allows you to have money to do the infrastructure projects that you need the money for. So I think it's positive. Newark typically has been doing some form of grant, as well as grant matching, as well as pay-as-you-go. But bonds are a great way as well to get more money into the system. Thank you.
Thank you. See, you'll be first on the next one, Mr. Moorhead, and I'm going to combine two questions, but the last line of both questions is exactly the same.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. There are still many hard feelings as a result of the very difficult and contentious situation over the power plant, and a consideration that nothing's really been done to keep that from happening again. And so the two questioners here want concrete examples on how you would help the city residents and the city heal and solve these problems.
I'm sorry, two questions?
I said this is the two questions. I paraphrased two questions, but the bottom line was give concrete examples on how you plan to help the residents and the city heal and solve the problem.
Okay. Thank you. I have, as I said earlier, there's a YouTube video of me asking council and council agreeing to correct the laws, if you will, that in part led to this problem. I've also worked on council to improve council's oversight, because I believe council is meant to lead and the administration is meant to administer. This is, again, where council is a democracy, and that has been a growing process, a slow process. It is reaping some fruit. It is not work that has been completed. And then the other thing is that I have been deeply involved with talking to residents and helping people understand and helping people to have faith in our future. We can take this town back. We can build the future that we want if we express our desires and if we stay involved.
Mr. Charma?
Yes, there were many hard feelings, neighbor against neighbor, primarily over the cogeneration facility, not necessarily the data center. I think healing is it's a person-to-person issue. You need to talk things through. You need to understand why the person feels that way, and you need to try to understand their opinion and honor that opinion. Now, solving the problem, I agree with Mr. Moorhead, you know, perhaps correcting legislation that led to confusion or the lack of proper guidance in making a decision, that's a good thing. But you can't legislate your way out of issues. The council just had an issue about a fence ordinance, changing the fence. How high should the fence be? Well, they voted the ordinance down at the end of the day. It was a dispute between neighbors. Sometimes, again, you're just going to disagree, and that's the way it's going to end. You're going to disagree.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
I strongly believe that that we are working our way through the pain that this community suffered from the power plant issue. Confidence must be built between the city council and the residents. The best way for that to happen is for the council, the city council, who's elected by the public. They need to lead, and the city managers and the government needs to follow. That's what needs to happen, and the citizens need to see that that is happening. I don't believe it was happening at the time that the power plant proposal came forward. And now you have folks coming to council meetings because they're not sure they can trust what's going to go on down here. We just need to prove through active council action that we will lead and we will tell the city manager what we want to have done, not be told otherwise in reverse.
Thank you. Ms. Haddon?
Council has directed the city manager to put processes in place so that this will not happen again. And she is more and has been more than happy to do that. This was difficult for everybody, and everybody in Newark learned lessons from this. Everybody did. And it was a terrible way to learn, but council has taken the lead and directed that so that this would not happen again. In particular, regarding forms and contracts and looking at responsibilities. As long as I'm on council, I don't see this happening again.
Thank you.
I hope it never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. We're coming down to the closing statements in which you each have 2 minutes if you want. A question came up that was directed toward the constituents, and perhaps the constituents would include this in their closing statement. It's, why do you think you deserve to be reelected, and what have you accomplished for your constituents? But the first person on the draw of the numbers is the challenger. Mr. Charma would start first. What do you wish to accomplish? 2 minutes for the closing statement.
Well, before I have a prepared closing statement. I have a prepared closing statement, but before I go into that, what do I expect to accomplish? I want to rebuild trust with the community and council and the operating departments and everyone in the community. We're all in this together, and you know, that's why I'm doing this. I think that I bring that quality of being able to bring people together and talk through differences and figure it out. And so with that, I'm going to go into my closing statement. It's been my pleasure to answer your questions. I truly love this city, and as I've spent 2/3 of my life here. I married and raised my son and daughter here, and my family is very proud to call ourselves Newarkers. I will bring my years of experience as a businessman and professional civil engineer combined with my passion as a leader to take our city to the next level. I have spent my career as a problem solver and a team leader. I will be a unifying force to bring people to common ground. I do realize that we will face challenges where we will disagree. However, it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to be disagreeable. For the past 20 years, I've served the citizens of Newark as a volunteer and will continue to serve the citizens as your councilman faithfully, honestly, and responsibly. I ask you to help me achieve this by voting for me on April 14th, for together we can bring our city forward to a bright future where our city will prosper and our families can grow. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much.
Mr. Moorhead?
Thank you. I love this city. There's no other way to say that. I've always said it exactly that way. We chose to move here. I've lived here approaching 1/3 of my life, approaching more than that, more than 1/3 of my life. Council is a job that requires tremendous amount of dexterity because the city offers services, the city offers infrastructure, and the city offers employee benefits. So you need to understand pension plans, health care. You need to understand infrastructure, drinking water, electricity, sewers, roads, trash collection, snow plowing, police, parks, and recs. There are also things like the comprehensive development plan. Where do we want to be 10 years down the road? And how do we get there? How do we get to our future quality of life? How do we address our challenges? What are our challenges? I believe our challenges are primarily flooding, clean water supply, and then community engagement as a government. And particularly community engagement, because I believe that's where it starts. You tell us, we represent, and then the administration does. It goes in that order. I've learned that one person can make a difference. One person can bring an idea, can plant a seed, can start a conversation, can support a conversation that's already happening, or that can improve an idea that's already out there. And I have concrete examples. I have many concrete examples of acting in any of those manners, in any of these realms that we have discussed. It is my privilege to serve as your council person. There is more work to be done. I ask for your support in continuing that work. I ask for your vote on April 14th, and I thank you for coming out and being involved this evening.
Thank you very much. Mr. Walker, you would be first.
I would like to say that I know this evening I sound rather aggressive. I'm a business guy. I spent 30 years running businesses, and I loved it. And I want to get involved in running this city through city council. I believe we need a more business-like approach to running the city, and I bring that talent and experience there. But I bring one thing that's much more important, the love of the city. My wife and I love this city. We've lived here literally all our life. We went through high school together and graduated in the class of '59. I'm an old guy. We still live here, and a few years ago, we decided we were going to stay here in our golden years because we love the city. We love the parks. We love the bikeways. We love walking downtown. We love the university atmosphere and everything about this city. We're not moving. I'd like to give back to this city. I have the time to do it, and I love it, and I want to do it. And I love Marge, nothing personal, but I want to be a business approach to this city to get it back and get it fiscally proper, correct, and to build the relationships back, to give confidence to you, the citizens, that this city is mended and healed, and we're one team together. And if elected, I promise you that will be my effort. Thank you.
Ms. Hatton, thank you.
Thank you all for coming out here tonight. I love this city too. When I was elected to council in 2013, I had no idea what storm was coming. I knew about the Wawa and its gas pumps that had many of my neighbors upset. But that was nothing compared to the conflict and turbulence that was around the corner with the power plant. To say that my 2 years on council had been consumed early on with challenges and charged emotions would not be inaccurate. I'm proud to say, however, that I feel I represented District 4 in the unbiased and stable manner that many expect from their elected officials. I believe my careful and thoughtful consideration helped us as a city to not be in the same position as UD is today, saddled with a huge lawsuit. My time on council has had its rewards too. I've especially enjoyed representing my district on at least 60 occasions, including speaking at 4 events, attending at least 6 ribbon cuttings, 9 workshops on stormwater management, land use and development, and disaster remediation, 8 various fundraising and non-fundraising community events, 3 public sessions on safety under crime, 7 governmental events, and 9 special honors or memorial ceremonies. In addition, I've worked with our police department and the mayor to identify and adopt families in need of extra assistance over the Yuletide holiday season. I've responded to specific community concerns like rental issues, student parking on neighborhood streets, alumni weekend, getting schmacked, bullying, trespassing, signage for some areas, improving landscaping, and litter. I've reached out to UD and have been working with them on building a relationship and sharing community concerns and working towards solutions. I've taken my job on council very seriously over the past 2 years, and I've worked very hard. I look forward to continuing to work hard and serve you for the next 2 years because I do have some projects in the works. I thank you for my time on council, and I look forward to having your vote on April 14th.
Thank you very much. Let's give all of the candidates a round of applause.